So I hear it's really, Jimmy? Jimmy Carter?
Hello, Kevin.
How much do you have to deal with people asking for peanuts and stuff?
Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate you.
A lot. You've dealt with a lot. Okay, good. I just wanted to make
I've had to live with it for a lot of years.
That's good.
But he's a nice guy,
Probably almost as much as I've had to deal with people saying they enjoy my sister's work. And
yes,
then it takes me a moment to realize they're talking about Sissy Spacek. And
then you've had to watch Dennis Hopper movies. I know you've been using that today. I'm stealing your line.
Oh, good.
All right, here we go. Have you actually turned down a part ever that you thought, I can't do this?
Oh, yeah, constantly. Yeah.
Because you seem to be able to do almost, you have a great variety and great range.
Well, I appreciate that, but sometimes it's not a question of even whether I think I can achieve it, either on an emotional level or a physical level. It's really, if I read a script and I think it's a good story and I might even think it's a great part, but very often I won't think I'm the right actor to do it, or that I'm the wrong element, or that somehow I'll imbalance it by being a part of it. So very often I do turn down things that I do think are good, and that in fact go on to be made and are good, and actors give performances that I really admire. But I'm still convinced that I would have been the wrong person to do it. So very often that'll be the reason, the criteria that I won't participate in something.
Did you always do that, or is this the rejection thing now, the luxury of being successful and not really having to take everything that comes down the road?
No, I think I've always tried to follow my heart in terms of the things that I did and I didn't do, and I was very lucky early on. I started working, pretty much about a year after I got out of school, and I had a couple of years there where things were tough in New York and I wasn't getting hired, But even I look at the couple of years I spent doing regional theater as an incredibly important a part of my learning and process as an actor, and so I'm just trying to continue to maintain that sensibility, which is that you really ought to do things that you believe in, and if you don't believe in them, then you probably should stay home.
When you look at the parts that you've played, your characters seem to all generally be pretty complex. They're not usually either black or white. That is one thing that I've seen as kind of a theme. Have you picked that up?
Yeah, because I don't find most people I meet black or white. I find that what tends to happen in terms of the way people are discussed, and the way people are pigeonholed, is that people tend to talk about people as if they're just this or just that. But in most of my experience, people are complex. They deal with complex issues. We have contradictions. We try very hard to negotiate with each other as best we can, to get along, to learn from each other, to be open and have a good spirit. And I think that most people grapple with a great number of confusing and difficult things as you go through life, and of course also the incredible things and the beautiful things about living and being a human being, what we can learn from each other. So I don't find it's not something that I particularly try to go for. It just happens to be the way that I view most people. I think most people are more than just one thing.
Is acting for you now, is it fun, or is it something that's kind of it's kind of like work, there's a difference, or is it a little bit of both?
No, the day I started acting was the last day I ever did an honest day's work. For me, it's actually, this year has been one of the most exhilarating years I've ever had. I started off this year by doing 6 months of a run of one of the greatest plays that America ever produced, The Iceman Cometh, a 4-hour epic work that we did in London and that we're going to bring to Broadway this spring. I've just completed a film in Ireland where I played an Irish gangster in a picture called Ordinary Decent Criminal. And I'm now shooting a picture called American Beauty with Annette Bening. And in each of these cases, I've gone for these parts because they challenge me, because they're different than anything I've ever done before. So for me, I'm having such a gas actually getting out of bed every morning. I can't quite believe it.
And how do you find your motivation as a grasshopper?
Well, what I did, and this is going to be my answer because apparently you've been listening on the satellite, and quite frankly, I'm a little disappointed in you, Jimmy.
I cheat.
You should have been making your notes and not stealing my lines. But here's my line that you stole, which is, I just rented every movie that Dennis Hopper ever made, and then I came to work. It was an easy gig,
Yeah, was it fun? Was that kind of fun, being able to just use your voice, that instrument of your acting?
It is. It's great fun because for me, I'm a Saturday morning kid. I grew up watching all those cartoons, and I've always wanted to do an animated voice. And I come out of the theater, and so a great deal of my life has been spent working on my voice, training my voice. So to be able to focus an entire performance just on that aspect was great fun. And when you're able to go to work in a studio every day with the talents of John Lasseter and his whole team at Pixar and Disney, I mean, it's literally like going to the playground because they just giggle all day long. And so you have this great time doing it. And I'm so proud that the achievement that they've attained is really being embraced by adults and kids alike.
In an animated film, do you try to memorize the lines, or are you reading them?
No, you really are reading them, because what very often happens is as they continue to render the story and modify it and change it, very often they're changing the dialogue, just in some ways, in small ways, but sometimes a line may have been recorded and it was too harsh or it was too soft. So all along, as you're doing we must have done about 16 or 17 sessions over almost 2 years of time. You really are just sort of reading off the latest cards that they have. I mean, after an hour or so, you get to know all the dialogue.
How about acting it out? I mean, physically using gestures and that kind of thing, even though it's not going to go across. Do you find that it helps you?
Well, it not only helps you, it actually helps them, because they're actually videotaping your recordings and sending those videotapes to the animators, and then they are taking I believe gesture and in some cases facial expressions, and actually applying them to the bugs.
So we can actually see your face in that grasshopper's face somewhere.
I'm not entirely sure you see my face, but I'm almost sure you can see Phyllis Diller's.
One of my favorite movies of the year was The Negotiator, and that was a really different part for you. Do you have good feelings about that movie?
I had a fantastic time. I'd never done a film of that type, a film that was more action-oriented. I'd had one experience in working with Sam Jackson when we did A Time to Kill down there in the South. But of course I've known Sam since we both started out in the theater and we were kicking around the streets of New York, and I think he's one of the most powerful and honest actors on the screen today. So we had a really great chemistry together. I'd love to work with him again, and we just tried very hard to bring our skills as actors to something that was a sort of a bigger action movie, and I was really happy that audiences really enjoyed it, and critics did, and it's now doing quite well around the world.
And finally, I would have been a better kid if I had gone to a military academy like you.
Well, I don't know if it made me a better kid. I got kicked out.
Well, I know that, but you threw a tire at a classmate.
Well, and he deserved it, damn it. He deserved it.
Well, I just don't see you as that violent a kind of man.
Well, I'll tell you quite honestly, that probably was the thing that turned me off violence. And it was pretty much right after being asked to leave the military academy that I got involved in theater. So at least it led to good things in my life.
Well, I bet you have your days too, Kevin.
We all do.
Be careful.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll see you later.
All right. Happy holidays.
You too.